Good morning. We're looking at our well-being this Sunday, and hopefully this will be something that we'll continue to check in with over the year. So, what do we understand by the term well-being? We hear this term a lot at the moment, but what does it mean and what can we do to maintain or even enhance our well-being? Well-being is a state of existence and refers to our satisfaction and contentment with life. It involves the complex interplay of a number of different internal and external factors in our life, shown in this diagram here. It includes our health, it includes our both physical and mental, it includes our relationships, our roles and our occupations, and that's all the things that we do, all of which give us a real sense of purpose and meaning. It refers to our sense of control and our agency in our lives and our ability to learn and adapt to new situations. It includes our environment, our physical environment, our social environment and our cultural environment as well. It includes our finances, and lastly it includes our sense of safety and security. Each of these contributes to how we feel within ourselves. There's quite a lot going on at the moment, and that can destabilise one of any of these factors, which will have a detrimental effect on our sense of well-being. So in these challenging times, it's really important that we look at how we maintain and enhance our sense of well-being. So, what can we do to enhance our sense of well-being? Well, in the earlier video that Peter Harper shared with you, he said it's not about developing a hedonistic, happy-clappy feeling. Instead, it's about developing a deeper sense of well-being in which we can enjoy life, appreciate what we have, and develop our emotional resilience to manage the buffetings of everyday life better. They are called keys because they open up a way to live a more meaningful life in harmony with both yourself and with others. And the 10 keys can be found here. They are giving, and it surprises me, this one does, in terms of how much of an impact giving has on how we feel. It includes relating, how we connect with people. It includes exercising, which is really a term for how we look after our body. It includes our awareness in terms of how we live mindfully, and I would add in prayerfully. It includes things like trying out new things, and it's amazing how energizing that can be. It includes our direction, the goals that we have to look forward to. It includes our resilience in terms of finding ways of bouncing back. It includes our emotions and looking for what's good. It includes acceptance and being comfortable with who you are. And lastly, it includes meaning, being part of something bigger. For a number of years, I've been a member of the social movement, Action for Happiness. And I found that these 10 keys to happier living really work in my everyday life. They also align with my professional life as well as an occupational therapist, and most importantly, they align to my faith. So I'd like to share with you a few thoughts about how we can enhance our sense of well-being through our faith using the lectionary readings for today, which the Cottles very kindly read to us earlier. So, where does our faith fit in with all of this? Our first reading was from Samuel, chapter 3, verses 1 to 10. And this is really a reading about listening and calling. God called Samuel into a relationship with him, relating, and subsequently relating to many others. For a very special task he was called, to be prophet, to bring a wayward nation back to God. This provided Samuel with a very strong sense of direction and involved a lot of learning, a lot of new opportunities, trying out a lot of new things. To be honest, I doubt he had a clear picture of what this would involve at the time, but he did know that he was being called. And he was being called to be part of something very much bigger than himself, which would provide real meaning and purpose in his life. In our second reading from John, chapter 1, verses 43 to 51, Jesus called Philip and Nathanael to be his disciples. Again, calling them into relationship with him. A relationship that would take them to new places, try out new things, would mark out who they were and radically change their lives. A real direction, a real sense of meaning, and a real sense of purpose. All three people had a very clear call from God to be part of something very much bigger. They were on a journey with the Almighty God, and this would provide for them a real purpose in their lives as their relationship with Him and others that they met on the way developed. Their faith would provide real meaning in their lives. We too are called to be part of something bigger, to be part of the body of Christ where we live and in our community. We're part of God's redemption plan in the different communities that each one of us belongs to. This redemption plan is an integral part of our belief system. It influences how we view the world and therefore how we act and how we behave. It can provide us with purpose every day. I think sometimes we need reminding of that. Sometimes we actually actively need to seek out that purpose. We need to say, okay, Lord, as we perhaps get out of bed in the morning, what's your purpose for me today? How can I be part of your eternal purposes in what I've got doing today? Sometimes what we do might be very significant, and sometimes it might seem really quite small. But I'm regularly reminded that we do each have a part to play. I don't know if some of you will remember an amazing lady in our congregation many years ago called Mabel Marriott. And Mabel was a lovely lady, and the time that I knew her, she was racked with chronic arthritis. But every holiday when we ran Art Club, Mabel would come up to us and say, tell us what I can pray for you this week. And it was wonderful to just know that we had Mabel praying for us each day of the week. And if we had new things that we needed to ask her to pray for, we could do so. And she was on our back praying for us, and it was wonderful. It was a blessing to us. But I think it was really a real blessing to her because she was part of the big plan for the youngsters in our neighbourhood. Relating, self-acceptance and giving are three more keys to happier living. So we see in John that Jesus called Philip and Philip went off to find his mate, Nathanael. Now, Nathanael was a bit sceptical, and he said those immortal words of, well, what good ever came out of Nazareth? And I have to say, I've been to Nazareth and I can see what he means. However, Philip encourages Nathanael to come and see for himself. His friend is important to him, and he doesn't want him to miss out. When Jesus sees Nathanael, he recognises him as an honest man, a true son of Israel. In other words, someone who was open to God. He starts to talk to Nathanael and begins a relationship with him. And I think from Jesus' comment to him, which is a bit strange about, do you think that I'd come over to you because I saw you under a fig tree? It was probably because he was aware of Nathanael's scepticism. But he doesn't let that get in the way. He still wants to get to know Nathanael and to call him to be one of his disciples. And I think that's encouraging. As Christians, we're called to follow Jesus, to live in a relationship with God and with each other. And our relationship with God is precious, and it will be unique to each one of us. As a parent, I have a different relationship with both of my children. With each of them, both of them are unique. And I do different things with them, and I discuss different things with them. But I love them both, equally, but differently. And I think it's a bit the same with God. Each one of us is unique, and Psalm 139 explained that. We each have our own personalities. We have our tastes and talents and passions and skills. And from what I see, I think God speaks to us in different ways, and he has different tasks for us to do on earth. He loves us and accepts us just as we are, warts and all, which is a relief. We're not always so loving to ourselves, however, and I wonder if, because God accepts us as we are, who are we to be over self-critical and self-deprecating? I think we need to learn to accept ourselves and to be kind to ourselves. And certainly accepting ourselves for who we are and being comfortable with who we are and kind to ourselves is another one of the 10 keys, which is worth unlocking together a bit more. We need to explore it in a bit more detail, but another time, sadly not today. Another key is relating, and relating to one another, connecting with each other and nurturing positive relationships. We are very social beings, and some of us more than others. I know that lockdown has been really hard, particularly for those ones of us who are more sociable. And I don't know if you've noticed, but when you've met up with a friend how you're more conscious of the joy of being with other people and how it energises you. But what can we do while we're still in lockdown and we're in severe lockdown again and we can't see each other apart from on a one-to-one walk where it's cold and chilly? Jane has repeatedly encouraged us to phone one another, and some of us will find this easier than others, but it is important to each of us. As we give time and attention to another person, we also will be blessed. Connecting and giving, we've got a few ideas here. We'll start off with this picture. I love this picture. It says that church is not a building you go to, it's a family you belong to. And how true is that? So, how can we stay in touch? Well, one way of doing so is we can meet on Zoom after this service. We've sent a link via WhatsApp, email, and you hopefully will be able to also find the link on Facebook. And it would be just lovely to see each other for a little while and to have a chat. A few more ideas. The church handbook is certainly a really good place to start. But you might find it overwhelming. In which case, why not pray? Ask God, who could do with a call from you today, and see who comes to mind. Alternatively, why not try imagining yourself back in church? You might want to shut your eyes to do this. Who do you see? Who comes to mind? Why not give them a call? This pandemic has polarised us in so many ways, one of which is the time we have available. I see some people have so much more work than they had before. They're completely overwhelmed with the amount of work, and yet equally some people are so underwhelmed with the amount of things they do. Lockdown or restrictions imposed by social isolation are just increasing our sense of isolation, and we have more time on our hands than we are used to or would like to have. So wouldn't it be great if, as a family, we were able to share what we had? So for those who are really busy, perhaps they could tell us what they need prayer for. And for those who've got more time on their hands, perhaps they could pray for what they need. Some of those things are quite personal, and perhaps we need somebody to pair us together. And I'm sure that Jane and the elders would be really happy if you feel that's got your name on it, that you'd like to be praying for somebody, or that you are overwhelmed and you need somebody to pray, that you could perhaps just get in touch and we can start ensuring that we are praying for each other's needs in the same way that we used to do in Art Club. On a practical front, there are some people who are currently homeschooling and working, which is incredibly admirable, and they might appreciate some practical help with their children. We can't meet in person at the moment, obviously, but perhaps we could offer something on Zoom. Perhaps we could offer a story or a recipe or a cookery lesson. We did Rocky Road on Zoom the other day in junior church, and that was great fun. Or perhaps a craft session, or teach somebody to knit or crochet or something like that. We have so many skills in our family. I'm just wondering how we might share them. Likewise, some can't go out at the moment, but might long to have some seeds to sow and some compost and to get things going, which they might be able to share at a later time. If you need a pairing agency, then get in touch with me. We are part of something bigger. We are a church family. How can we share our talents? How can we connect and give to one another? Listening and giving. Well, the other side to calling is obviously listening. And Samuel heard someone calling in the night, and he thinks it's Eli, so he goes to Eli. Eli sends him back once and then a third time. On the third time, though, he realises that it could be God calling him. Eli did listen to him. He took him seriously and told him that if he hears the voice again, he should respond by saying, "Yes, Lord, your servant is listening." How important it is to listen and to hear what somebody is saying, to value what that person is saying, and not to dismiss it out of hand. If Eli hadn't taken Samuel's experience seriously and shown the boy how to listen to God, how would he have learned to hear God's calling? Listening is an important skill that we sometimes underestimate. Being listened to is always, always important. It gives a person a sense of being valued, worthy of your time and your attention. in many ways, it is a form of giving, which, as Peter said, taps into our reward centres in our brain and amazingly gives back to the giver. So it's a win-win situation. Listening to God can be a bit more difficult. Spending time in prayer with him and giving him our attention is more tricky, but it is so vital in relating and developing our relationship with him. Which brings me on to mindfulness and prayer. So mindfulness, being aware of your surroundings, is one of the 10 keys. And I think there's a strong link between mindfulness and prayer, which is very much part of current thinking and enhances our sense of well-being. Mindfulness involves taking some time out of the busyness and worries of the day. It requires you to focus in on the present moment and to take a breath. It requires you to be aware and to notice and appreciate things around you. And it requires you, for that one moment, to accept who you are, to accept where you are, to feel safe and secure in that moment. As a result, it can give you a positive sense of control or agency for that moment in time, and it can act as a circuit breaker to the more destructive thoughts and feelings. It can also give you a greater sense of harmony with yourself. It's a valuable and refreshing activity, and there are many resources available to help you develop mindfulness techniques, and I'm happy to put resources on the Facebook site for you to go to. So how does it link with prayer? Well, I think there's quite a parallel between mindfulness and prayer. When I pray, I take time out of the hustle and bustle of the day and the busyness of my brain, and I try and focus my attention on God. I become aware I come into his presence and I focus on him. I notice things around me and I bring them to God in prayer. I bring my concerns and my worries to God and I leave them with him. I can wait. I can feel accepted as a child of God and I feel safe in his presence. I can listen and I can receive his guidance and his wisdom. And as a result, I usually come away with a real sense of peace and I feel energised. Sometimes I have an idea of what I need to do next. It depends how long I wait, and it depends how long I listen. Emotions. At the moment, it's very easy to be overwhelmed by the constantly negative news, which takes our toll on our emotions and can make us feel sad and worried and can unmotivate us and make us feel very low. So how do we manage these emotions? How can we unlock more positive feelings? Firstly, it is important to acknowledge these issues as they are, to recognise the emotions that they evoke and not to try and just shove them to one side, but to recognise they're there. But then to look for where we can control the impact of this news and these emotions. For example, if you watch the news constantly, you're hearing the same sort of depressing messages and constantly seeing very disturbing images, which undoubtedly will lower your emotions. However, by limiting your exposure to it, perhaps to once a day, it will reduce the bombardment and it will improve the impact. It will reduce the bombardment and the impact that it has on your emotions. One of the reasons that the news increases our anxiety is that these are things which we have no control of. We need to be aware of them, but we can't do anything about them. So perhaps what we need to do is to identify what is in our grasp. So, for example, what are the actions that I can do to keep me safe and to keep those around me safe, and put them into practice. But then also to identify what is beyond my grasp and beyond my control, and to leave those with God, because I can't do anything about those. Surprisingly, another thing that can help you is to appreciate what you've got and to practice gratitude. It has a really positive effect on you by appreciating things around you. Try this. Before you go to sleep at night, try looking back over your day and thinking of 3 good things which you've appreciated that day. 3 things that you could thank God for. If you do that regularly, research suggests that you will sleep better and you will feel better. Okay, last key that we're going to have a little look at is trying out something new. Now, God called Samuel, Philip and Nathaniel to try out many new things, often taking large steps of faith. There was that amazing story in Acts where Philip is guided by the Holy Spirit to completely change his direction and to go down a desert road between Jerusalem and Gaza. And there he would meet somebody, and he met an Ethiopian official, a royal accountant no less, who happened to be reading Isaiah. And Philip bravely said to him, "Do you know what you're reading?" And he said, "No, I haven't a clue. Can you tell me?" And so they did. And as a result of that, taking that immense step of faith, the Ethiopian became a Christian and took the message, the gospel, back to Ethiopia. Quite extraordinary. And then, even more amazing, the Bible says that Philip was caught away by the Spirit and landed up somewhere else. I've always thought that was beam me up, Scotty. So amazing. Certainly trying something new. So, I'm not suggesting that's going to happen to all of us, but what new things has God got in store for you this year? New Year is a great time for new intentions. I love New Year. And new beginnings is a time for planning. And although COVID at the moment is really mucking up with any plans we might have, it's still important to plan because it gives us glimmers of hope of what might yet be to come. So God knows our future. He knows the future. Who better to consult with? So at the moment, we're in a bit of a waiting room. We're currently waiting for the R rate to go down, we're waiting for a vaccine, we're waiting for restrictions to be lifted, we're waiting to see each other and be able to do things in a normal way. So during this time of waiting, let's use this time to just seek what God has in store and to listen and to wait on Him. Just a little example. When I retired, I knew that it was the right time to do so, but I didn't really want to. I still felt I'd got lots of things to do. And I knew I needed to find out what those were and to wait on God. So I went for a day's retreat with Julie to Laund Abbey. And as we prayed, I had this picture come to mind, which said, wait. Wait and enjoy the view. And in fact, I did a little picture of it, and I'm just going to push it there a little bit so you can see it. Okay, it's nothing spectacular, but as I was praying, this was my picture. And for me, waiting and enjoying the view is an unusual thing to be doing because I'm rather active and I find that hard. It wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting the next step of the plan. But you know what? It was what I needed. I was really tired. I'd been overworking. I wasn't sleeping well. And I'd been on the go for a very long time. And I knew my batteries were really, really low. And I needed to actually wait and restore my batteries. So I did what I was told. I waited and I enjoyed the view. I took up drawing and I took up Italian. And my goodness, they energised me and they gave me new experiences and put a zest in my life. I so enjoyed it. I met lots of new people and I enjoyed the excitement of learning something new. I visited Enid the other day and she's been watching Bite Size and she's so excited about learning something new. Really encourage you, try something new. It makes such a difference. So I was able to use that time and to just explore a little bit of what God had to show me. And as time went by, I did begin to realise what the next step was. It's still all a bit foggy out there, and I haven't got a clear plan, but I don't need to know all the steps. I just need to know what the next step or two is. And that's what I'd really encourage us to do. Spend a bit of time and seek the Lord. What's the next step that we need to take? And as we take a step in faith, let's see where we go. So, in conclusion, what next? Well, I'm hoping that as a result of this morning, you'll be doing a little bit of a well-being audit of what you're doing. And I'd really recommend that you take a bit of time to talk this over with a trusted friend and explore what small step you need to do. You don't need to change everything at once. One small step is always a step in the right direction. You might want to read Dave Smith's book, God's Plan for My Wellbeing. Really good book, Jane's recommending it, and also, really excitingly, she's going to be setting up a group where we can discuss what we've discovered. There's lots of practical examples in there, and you might want to join in that. There are loads of resources, and by the time you receive this, there will be some resources on the Facebook page, which you can go in, have a little look around, see what there is there that might interest you. If you're really struggling with your mental health at the moment, and I know that there will be people who are, and if you're feeling overwhelmed, please talk to somebody. It's really important you do. Find somebody you trust. There are loads of resources. If you feel you need signposting for some professional help, you're very welcome to get in touch with me. I have a good knowledge of what's out there, and I'd be really happy to help you find the right way forward. Anyway, it's been a joy to talk to you this morning, and I look forward to seeing you later on Zoom. God bless. Bye-bye.